What's up, I'm Troubleshoot, welcome back to another video. In this quick guide, I'll be taking you through optimizing Apex Legends for Season 16. It released just a few days ago, and in this quick video, you'll learn how to get the best performance out of your PC. I won't be touching on Windows at all. Instead, in the description down below, you'll find a Windows 10, 11, and NVIDIA optimization guides to help you get the most out of your PC. This is just going to focus on the game. That being said, before we even get started, the best thing you could possibly do is close as many background programs as you have open. The less you have running, the more resources you can give to your game. And on top of that, any unnecessary overlays such as the Discord overlay, etc. should be turned off if you're not using them. With those quick tips out of the way, we're going to start on Steam. We have a bit of preparation to do before we even fire up the game. First of all, right-click Apex Legends, click Properties, and inside of here, you'll see this command line. We'll enter -dev-novid and plus FPS_max, followed by however many max FPS you'd like to achieve, say 165 for a 165 Hz screen, 144, etc. Or you can uncap it by typing in a relatively big number. At the very beginning, I have plus exec, auto exec, but we'll get here later on. In fact, I'll take that out for now. For now, we'll fire up into the game. Alright, so as you can see in the top left, I have an FPS graph, counter, etc. We'll start with just a baseline of normal settings. So the settings icon on the bottom right, settings, video, and here I'll leave everything pretty much as is. Everything's maxed out. We'll hop into the firing range just to get a baseline. I'm currently at 150, 160, jumping into the main bit here. Still 160-ish. I do have an absolutely overkill PC. That's just gone even more overkill recently. 120 FPS. Everything maxed out, 3080 Ti, that's pretty good. Obviously, this could be a lot better. So, with our baseline in mind, let's return to lobby here and begin. So, settings in the bottom left, then settings and video. Display mode should be full screen. Aspect ratio, 16:9, or whatever your monitor is, just make sure it matches. The same goes for resolution. Don't have this higher than what your actual monitor is, otherwise you're just wasting performance, and anything too low will result in a blurry display. Brightness and field of view are your preference. Even though field of view may have a hit or a performance gain, it really doesn't matter. Have this based on how you prefer to play. Same goes for FOV ability scaling, and sprint shake I would recommend having on minimal. Then advanced. Here we need to turn off VSync for an accurate FPS count. Probably should have done that earlier, but you'll see the difference. Anyway, VSync disabled. Unless you're getting screen tearing, where the top and bottom half of your monitor don't match and you see a tearing effect, that's when you need to come back and enable this. For now, leave it disabled. NVIDIA Reflex, low latency, you can leave this on enabled if you're GPU limited, otherwise enabled plus boost if you're CPU limited. If you're not sure, enabled plus boost is good enough. Adaptive resolution FPS target should be set to 0 so that this is turned off completely. Anti-aliasing should be turned off unless you hate jagged edges. Texture streaming budget should be roughly one below where your graphics card is. Definitely don't have it on none. For example, if you have 12 or above gigabytes of VRAM, select 8. If you have 8 gigs of VRAM, select 6. If you have 6, select 4. 4, select 3. 3, select etc. Basically, just one step below where you are should be a reasonable pace to pick. Having it set too high can result in FPS drops if you don't have enough VRAM on your PC. For me, I've got, I think, 12 or 16, so 8 is good enough. Texture filtering, you can have this set to bilinear, which is practically the lowest setting you can get here, but ultimately, anisotropic filtering has almost no effect on FPS in this game. You can lower it if you wish. Heck, I'll just leave it on bilinear. Then ambient occlusion, set this to disabled. Sun shadow coverage, low. Shadow detail, low. Spot shadow detail should also be set to low. You can disable this, though that removes quite a bit of visual information from the game, making it look a lot worse. Scrolling down, volumetric lighting and dynamic spot shadows, you can disable both of these. Model detail, I'd recommend leaving on medium, no lower unless you absolutely need it, otherwise things look all plasticky and weird, people, etc. Effects details, you can comfortably lower down all the way. Impact marks, I would recommend having on low instead of disabling them completely, as they may be some sort of a tactical advantage in some rare situations. Ragdolls, obviously it doesn't really matter what happens to a body after it's done living, so leaving it on low is good enough. Obviously, the more settings that you lower here, the more FPS you'll be getting. That's pretty much what we've done here. I'll apply it, but we'll get even further than the lowest settings in just a moment, showing you how to pull every bit of performance out of this game. The audio tab, there's not really too much to talk about other than maybe muting music if that annoys you. So heading back to the firing range, re-enabling the overlay, I'm getting almost 300 FPS, which is double what I was getting before there, and hopping down to the main area, 240 is pretty much double 120-ish, which is what I was getting, so there has been a huge improvement. Obviously, where there's more going on, FPS drops regardless, but 240, 250 is a great number to have, especially when it's so much higher than what it was previously. But we can take this up a whole nother level. Say you're a really competitive player and you don't care at all about graphics quality, instead you just care about raw performance and visibility. Well, that's why I have an extra tip for you. I'll close out of the game. This is where we get into the land of configs. A friend of mine, Color, has a patcher that would automatically place an auto exec and video config file. However, it hasn't been updated in a short minute and is currently broken. Otherwise, you just run this command here and things will be done for you. We'll be setting this up manually. You'll find a link to this in the description down below. I'll open the autoexec.cfg file here in another tab, and the same goes for videoconfig.txt here. Then, having a look at the autoexec, click raw over here, and when the page loads, right-click Save As, and just make sure that you change it from text file to all files and remove .text at the very end. So it's just autoexec.config. Save. Then we can close this, and on the video config text, click raw once more, then right-click Save, and this time you don't need to worry about removing .text, just save it as is. Now we have these two files. I'll open up my downloads folder, and we'll move these to where they need to be. First of all, we'll drop the video config in the games folder. If you use useful software, such as anything, you can simply search for videoconfig.txt and be taken straight to that directory. Otherwise, you'll need to head here manually. Essentially, you'll head to C, users, your username, saved games, respawn, Apex, local. Inside of here, you'll be dropping the video config file. I'll rename my existing one to old, and I'll drag it in here. There we go. Now our settings have changed to optimal max FPS, max visibility settings. Now, just before we close this, we need to open a video config, and inside of here, Control F 1920. We're looking for default res 1920 and default res height 1080. 1920 by 1080 is full HD. You'll need to set this to whatever your monitor is. In my case, it's 2560 by 1440. Control S, and now we can close this. Now we need to drop the autoexec file in the game's install directory. For this, I'll open up Steam, right-click Apex Legends, Manage, and Browse Local Files. Inside of here, open the CFG folder, and we'll be dragging and dropping the autoexec file in here. Replace if necessary, and there we go. Essentially, there's a bunch of little optimizations in here and tons of tweaks. There's lots of comments as well to tell you what does what and if it works, etc. There's lots in here, and you can get to customizing this yourself should you want. At default, it's probably good enough. Anyways, with these optimal settings there, all we need to do is open our launcher of choice, in my case Steam, right-click Apex Legends, Properties, and under General, we'll be adding plus exec space auto exec and close it. Then we can fire it up. Now let's see what kind of difference that made. You'll notice a huge visual change everywhere, but you should also see a drastic increase in FPS, etc. Let's give it a shot in that firing range. Now, obviously this may be a bit too extreme for you, but you should see a drastic increase in performance and stability. Now, there's not too much of a difference between low and what we have here, but generally your FPS should be a lot more stable and a lot higher. Currently, I'm setting at almost a solid 290, 300, whereas before it was bouncing around 240, 250-ish in this area. So there's definitely a huge improvement once more. Now, obviously you'll still get dips in action, but they should be a lot less noticeable as everything's lowered down pretty much as far as it goes and visibility is really good. You'll notice shadows and things like that have almost all but completely vanished from players, etc. But ultimately, it does add to the visibility. You can separate people a lot better from the background, etc. There's no real place that you can hide in the dark. Ultimately, there'll always be a trade-off between performance and looks, and of course a competitive edge somewhere in between. This may be something you like, it may not be. You don't have to use this config, but should you choose to, you'll find it in the description once more. Anyways, that's about it for this quick optimization guide. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to Color from Color Tech Tips, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.